Hello, Tim Jones here, and welcome to another edition of View from the Bleachers. And this week, I want to apologize. Over the past 16 years, I've been writing a weekly humor column called View from the Bleachers, and in 2020, I started my regular video commentary series on YouTube. And over the years, people have posted thousands of comments, and some of them have even been positive. As a humor writer, I've learned that, sometimes my words have offended my viewers, and by sometimes I mean less than 90% of my videos. So I wanted to take this opportunity to personally respond to some of the constructive feedback I've received and try to make things right. More on the other side. Welcome back. Like I said, I wanted to issue some formal apologies to millions of viewers of my View from the Bleachers YouTube channel. Now, first off, I want to apologize for implying just now that I have millions of viewers. That was a lie. I figured who's going to know if I made that figure up, but it's probably not a good way to start off my apology tour. So let's begin, shall we? To all of you vegans who were mortified by my video called Health Safety Warning, These Foods Will Kill You, in which I implied that eating leafy green vegetables could, in fact, kill you, well, I apologize. And I want to thank you for the hundreds of letters protesting that carrot cake is not technically a vegetable. I apologize also to the Brussels sprouts growers of America for calling yours the worst tasting food ever. I meant to say kale. Yeah, kale is definitely even worse than Brussels sprouts, so my bad there. To Mr. Arnold Halaz of Budapest, Hungary, who I appear to have sent completely over the edge, I apologize for my snarky comment that in Hungary, the only three foods that you will find are pickles, cabbage, and pickled cabbage. I completely failed to mention cauliflower, and that one's totally on me. And thank you, Mr. H, for all your letters. I should mention, however, that your most recent death threat came postage due. Don't forget to use 2 first-class stamps next time, okay? And to Gunter Heppenheimer of Cowbells, North Dakota, who was offended by my narrative called Always Lie to Your Kids, I hope you'll be able to forgive my horribly misguided parenting advice. When I said you should always lie to your kids, I meant to clarify this by adding, only if your wife is not there to catch you, and only if you're sure that your child is not recording your conversation. And you can learn more wonderful parenting tips from my book, You're Grounded for Life, Misguided Parenting Strategies That Sounded Good at the Time. Now available in paperback at fine booksellers everywhere, except in Hungary. I appear to have seriously burned that bridge. Let's continue. To Edna Wepler of Racine, Wisconsin, who was offended by my video called A Side-by-Side Comparison of Our Savior versus the Apple iPad, I completely apologize. I absolutely respect your deeply held religious convictions, and I was not meaning to imply that the iPad is better than your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I was simply trying to point out that it has a much faster operating system than Jesus, with more advanced graphics. It comes with way more free apps, and it has a more forgiving interface. To Maria Solbein of Hornbeck, Louisiana, who was offended by my video called Women Help End Discrimination Against Men by Getting Struck by Lightning, I apologize. And I appreciate that from your perspective, it seemed that I was arguing that men face more discrimination than women in our society. And your exhaustive list of 342 studies documenting the long-standing patterns of discrimination against women in the workforce and in politics and in society overall, I must say it was impressive, not to mention exhausting. But I stand by my claim that far more men than women suffer from male pattern baldness. So let's just agree to call it a tie. Okay, honey? To Angus O'Shaughnessy of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, who was offended by my commentary called 7 Myths About Our Neighbors to the North, I apologize for my insensitivity to the great nation of Canada and for my callous stereotypes about your country being totally ice-covered 10 months of the year, along with my egregiously, well, frankly, flippant comment that most Canadians live in igloos and leave their elderly to die alone on ice floes. You know, in doing some additional research, I realize now that I meant to say Norway, not Canada. I promise to print a correction in the next issue of Curling Quarterly magazine. And by the way, Angus, there's a fascinating article in the most recent edition about how to create the perfect ice for curling. You don't want to miss it. Now, to Carlo Grimaldi of Piscataway, New Jersey, who was offended by my video titled "The Case Against Marriage Equality for Left-Handed People," I could not be sorrier for my misguided diatribe. I meant nothing sinister. I understand that as a left-handed American, you felt that my argument in opposition to marriage rights for people with your embarrassing affliction demonstrated an intolerance on my part. Well, since reading your thoughtful, all caps, profanity-laced rebuttal, I've come around to your viewpoint. Yes, I now fully embrace your right as a left-handed American to marry, just like normal people do. But, quite frankly, let's agree to draw the line there. For God's sake, we must keep the sacred bonds of matrimony closed from those disgusting, ambidextrous deviants. I'm sure you would concur. That's just disgusting. God have mercy on his soul. Now, to Stanley Horowitz of Muncie, Indiana, who as a proud dog owner was offended by my video, an important message from your cat, in which I actually dressed up like a giant tuxedo cat, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. You see, as a cat owner, well, I took the liberty in that article and that video of referring to dogs as tail-wagging kiss asses. I apologize for my coarse use of language and for inferring that dogs spend most of their time sniffing other dogs' butts and barking apoplectically at the mere sight of a squirrel. Nor did I mean to imply that dogs have ADHD. That showed tremendous insensitivity to all the dogs out there that possess the requisite intelligence needed to read my unflattering remarks about their species. So, sorry, Fido. Now, to the many Catholics outraged by my discussion called "Rumor Has It I May Be the Next Pope," please accept my apology. In retrospect, the fact that I took 3 years of high school Latin and was celibate for much of my freshman year of college probably were not sufficient credentials to make me a finalist for the job. And as it turns out, some dude from Chicago named Cardinal Bob just beat me out for the job. In my defense, however, I was a quarterfinalist. To all of you who were offended by my recent video discussion titled "Warning, improper use of this product could indicate that you're an idiot," and yet you still tried to swallow this hanger despite its clear instructions not to, well, I apologize. I did not mean to call you an idiot. The proper word I should have used was complete imbecile. What an imbecile. Finally, if you have been offended in any way by anything that I've said in this week's video, well, then take a number, buddy. There's a long list of people ahead of you. I'll try to get to you with my apology by next Christmas. Be patient.